The 6-seated sit-and-go tournaments offer somewhat different dynamics than full 9 or 10-seated tables. You see more hands because fewer players mean less time spent on each round, creating a faster pace. Each player ends up in the blinds more often, so you may find yourself playing out of position more often than you're used to, which means that also requires a slightly more aggressive attitude and willingness to get involved in more hands. You can see the 6-seated sit-and-go tables in the Paddy Power Poker lobby here just by looking at the number of seats available. So let's look at a hand that I played from the small blind in the early stages of this Paddy Power Poker sit-and-go tournament. Jack-9 offsuit is a good drawing hand, but I don't want to call pre-flop raises with it in the early stages unless the odds to do so show some potential. However, in this hand it is folded to me, and I decided to actually just fill up the small blind. Normally this is either a fold or a raise here, but the player in the big blind has been playing quite tight, and I expect a check with a view to keeping this pot small unless I make a big hand. Check he does, and the pot is now 80. We both see the flop of Jack of clubs, Ace of spades, and the 10 of clubs. I have hit second pair here, and I think this should be a bet now as I act first. The problem is, without much thought, I decided to check instead. That gave my opponent an invitation to bet, and he does just that, half the pot. Because I didn't bet first, it's more difficult to know where he is in the hand. But because he has been playing so tight, I do not think he would bet with nothing. I decide to flat call. The pot is now 160. The turn card is the 9 of spades. Now, even though I hit 2 pair here, I wouldn't get too excited about it because not only does this help a straight draw, it adds another flush draw. I do not want to play for a big pot here, and I've actually gotten myself into a muddy situation. I'm just checking again. My opponent now bets out 120, making the pot 280. I am getting better than 2-to-1 odds, but the board is very dangerous. Re-raising here, I feel, is problematic because my opponent is down to 995 chips and is playing like he has a hand or at least a very good draw. There is a small chance he's double-barreling here, and I decide to call yet again, hoping he backs off on the river and just checks it down. The pot is now 400, and the 7 of spades lands on the river. Even though this card is more chemistry, my opponent could think that the card helped me since I called both of his bets. On the other hand, it could have helped him as well. If I check here, he could be quite confident that his straight or 2 pair are good, and that will invite a bet bigger than I want to call. I feel this is a perfect spot for a blocking bet then, as I want to determine how much it's going to cost me to know if my 2 pair are actually the second best hand here. I decide to bet 240, a little more than half the pot. The only way I win this hand here is if he only has maybe paired his ace, which is a reasonable line for him. My opponent pauses and raises all in, making the pot 1,635. That's not good. I have 1,775 chips left, still over my starting stack, and I need to call 755 with 2.2-to-1 odds. Given the board chemistry, my opponent's profile, and his reaction to my blocking bet, this is a clear but sad fold to me. Since I still have a healthy stack, if I fold at this early stage, it's much better to wait for another opportunity. Keep in mind, most of your opponents will actually call this and lose, so I think his re-raise is a very good play. Me, on the other hand, I botched this hand from the start by not leading the betting. The best play I made was using the blocking bet on the river, which rather much determined for me at a price I was willing to pay that I was beat. Okay, thanks for watching. For more sit-and-go strategy hands, visit the Poker School at paddypowerpoker.com.